I do another video. Actually, I have a few videos. I had someone on our Discord, so be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe. I had someone, hold on, let me close this door because I haven't seen it. Okay, it's Saturday, so Noel's at the studio. We have a party. I have a ton of stuff coming in. So I'm going to have to bring all that to the studio. The studio's actually been doing really, really, really good at the start of this year. So if everything continues the way that it has, it's going to be a wonderful year. Last year was a great year, and I think this year is going to be no different. We've been doing really, really well, and so it's great. Very, very blessed. But it's not what this video is about. Be sure to join the Discord as I mentioned. And I was going on a story before Zeta interrupted me. And I had someone ask, when are you going to do another video? And they were wondering like, bruh, it's been a while, right? But I actually have a ton of videos that I have that are done. They're not completely all the way up. Let me try to fix this. Hold on one second. There we go. Did I? I have a ton of videos that are actually done, but it's not like I've actually, and they're even on YouTube. I just haven't hit the button to turn them on. Sometimes I'll do a video and then the content becomes too old, so I can't use it. And then there's other times, that's better. There's other times when, okay, there's other times whenever I have done content and maybe at that point in time, I'm a little bit annoyed. So then I have to go back and say, it's not a good one to put out. Or sometimes I'll do content and I'm like, I'm not feeling it. So there's a reason why sometimes I don't release it. And then there's just burnout, fatigue. And you get a little bit tired of doing the videos. So it all comes hand in hand. But did get an Ask Hirsch Snowy, and this person told me that, hey, Hirsch, I am wanting to move to the area. Bellevue to me is out of it, but Seattle and Tacoma are probably going to be the locations that are best suited for me, mainly due to expense. The problem is that I don't know the benefits of either one over the other. So I'm having a hard time trying to decide which one would be best for me. I can barely afford Seattle, and I know I should be okay with Tacoma, but as it stands, it's getting harder and harder to decide what to do. In your opinion, give me some of the pros and the cons of both cities since you lived in them. It's a good question. Let me first say, before I get into that, this region adds, when I talk about this region, I'm talking the Puget Sound region. So I'm talking not only the trifecta, as I call it, or the tech triangle, which is Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, not just them, but the entire region adds roughly 188 people per day. Okay? So when I tell folks like, hey, you really need to focus on getting a house or a home, it's because, and this is our slowdown time, back when Seattle was really starting to pull a lot of people in, that number was higher when we're talking about the overall region. But we're talking about now, today, you're looking at about 188 people move to this region every single day. And when you look at Seattle, where it added 100,000 people in just, what was it, 10 years or something like that? It's insane. Excuse me. We went to, I think now our population for the entire metro region is about 4.2 million people. So when you look at the amount of square footage we're talking about, you can put the entire region that we have here inside of some cities, because we're a skinny area to some degree, especially when you're looking at Seattle. But all the way from the Canadian border down to Olympia, you're looking at an area, or probably, let's say Tacoma to be on the safe side. You're adding 188 people a day, and Tacoma itself adds about 6 to 7 people every single day. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you're moving in 6 to 7 people a day, you can kind of understand what happens, right? So I got this actual chart here. I'm going to go small and this is going to go big, but it talks about Tacoma versus Seattle, where to live, pros and cons, right? So what's great about this is that this was back in 2020. Okay, so it's here. Let me move me so you guys can see me. Sorry, I'll put myself here. So while it is not recent information, it's not so far out that you can't really take most of this to heart, right? But it talks about and also one of the things too, Bellevue is not considered to be its own metro. It's kind of considered to be a bedroom community, so pretty much kind of a suburb, if you will. The way that my definition, this is based on the census and other people that keep stats. The way that they look at Tacoma, because it's in a completely different county, it's like its own true city. So it's its own metro area, similar to San Francisco and Oakland, California, right? Or Minneapolis and St. Paul, or Dallas and Fort Worth. It's similar here. You still have some pretty heavy hitters in the Dallas region. But when it comes to the principal cities, you have Dallas and you have Fort Worth, and the same for a lot of these other places. Tacoma and Seattle are the exact same in that regards. And so a lot of times it's much easier to get detailed information because both are classified as true separate cities. They're not suburbs of each other. Some will lump Tacoma into that category, but really it technically is not. So it goes through here and it says Tacoma and Seattle are two of the largest, most beautiful cities on Washington's Puget Sound. Whether you're interested in tech or looking for great communities with strong arts and culture, or you're looking for a safe city to raise kids, both have so much to offer, including the sites along the Sound and stunning evergreen forests. To help you choose which city is the best for your family, we've created a Tacoma versus Seattle guide with a look at commutes, cost of living, major attractions, and more. Now, you're going to have some people that will sit and say they hate both. This is not the video for them. You're going to have some people that will talk about, well, what about the homelessness or the crime, or that they're Democrats or that Biden? This is not the video for you, nor is this the region necessarily for you, right? That's not what this video is about. This video is about actual facts, not opinions, right? So, sorry for all the spammy ads. The pros and cons. So they said that they wanted to go through and look at the advantages and disadvantages. I can tell you what I like about both cities and what I dislike. And there are people who say, well, that's stupid that you don't like, that's not true. And it's like, that's my opinion. You can't tell someone their opinion is not true. It's true to them. It may not be factual. And that's a different story. But it's true to them. Right? So Tacoma may be Seattle's smaller sister, but the city has tons of cultural attraction with sports, concerts, and theater at your fingertips. One of the perks of living in Tacoma is you'll always find something fun to do without driving to the city. The city, sorry, I got to turn this down. I get notifications with the business, but Noel can handle that right now. Let me turn that down. Yeah, so when they say without driving to the city, they're saying without driving to Seattle, right? Tacoma Arts Live, which is, they used to be the one that was in control of a lot of different things downtown. The theater district with the two theaters and all that, that changed and shipped hands recently, so that's a little outdated. But we have a massive, bigger art center than Seattle does in terms of just the arts. We have by far bigger. Now, Seattle has the poshness. So you have Mopop and you have, all this other stuff, right? They have a science and cultural center. civic science and cultural exhibit or something like that. I don't know. It's a huge colossus. They have that type of stuff, but it's all stuff that was either given to them in the case of Mopop, or it was due to being a part of the World's Fair. So that's how Seattle got a springboard because it's similar to cities that host the Olympics and they really take care of the Olympic features that they have. A lot of cities just, for whatever reason, around the world, disregard their Olympic facilities. It's such a waste. But some cities still utilize a lot of what they had. And I did a video talking about Spokane, and I don't know if I uploaded it or not, but Spokane also held the World's Fair. It's the smallest city to do so. And so a lot of what you see downtown is a result of that World's Fair in Spokane. Seattle is no different. And so that's how they were able to have a lot of the stuff that they have down there, including Key Arena. But that's not what this is necessarily about. So it says Tacoma Arts Live features 3 theaters and it's home to the Tacoma City Ballet, Tacoma Philharmonic, Tacoma Symphony Orchestra, Puget Sound Rebels, the famous Tacoma Dome, which is the world's largest arena with a wooden dome. A lot of people don't know that. It hosts everything from major concerts and music festivals to wrestling matches, basketball games, expos, and political rallies. You'll also find other fun venues to explore while living in Tacoma, like small lounges, concert halls, and piano bars. Well, this is very true. Right now, there is a massive event going on at the Tacoma Dome, which is an EDM concert. They go to all these big cities. It has found its home here. They host that event several times throughout the year. It has gotten so big that even in Freight House Square, they have their after party in Freight House Square. And this is going on right now, right? Right now, this is going on. So last night, they have their after party in Freight House Square, close to where our business is, literally. Like, just right a few feet away. Because this is such a major thing, right? EDM concerts are huge, huge here. Very huge. So much so there might be a nightclub opening up that caters to EDM right in downtown. That's how big that is. When we're talking about concert halls, that has exploded since this report, right? Because they talk about places where you can have concerts, but some of the areas include Alma Mater. I can't say it. Alma Mater is one of them. The other one would be McMenamins. Sorry, guys. I thought I turned everything down. McMenamins. They have a huge venue down there where they can hold live, and they often do. They hold live concerts down there constantly, right? Then you have even Freight House Square. It has concerts sometimes occasionally inside of those event spaces, right? You're looking at, what's it called? Kelly's Olympian. They're going to, and when I'm talking about large venues, I'm talking holding a couple hundred people at a time. They're going to have, when they get theirs done, that's going to be full of live music constantly. So when it comes to live music, Tacoma went from having little of nothing to being something big. And I also forgot about, what's it called? Jazz something. Damn it. Hold on, let me look it up. There are going to be some people screaming at me saying the name. Jazz Bones in Tacoma. Jazz Bones, also live music. And there's many, many more. Right? Many, many, many more. So this is very, very true. Piano bars, also with live music, is Keys on Main. That is one of Noel's favorite places. You can go there, listen to dueling pianos. It's just great, right? So, and that happens every single weekend, Friday, Saturday for sure. And it gives you an idea of how, but and at one point in time, that was kind of the only place. That and Jazz Bones, and that was kind of it. Then Alma Mater came, and then some of these other stuff have started to come in, and there's additional things that are coming. So yeah, I would have to agree with that. They said Tacoma's beautiful outdoors. One of the best benefits of living in Tacoma Enjoying the city's gorgeous outdoor space, the jewel of Tacoma is Point Defiance Park, most comparable to New York City's Central Park in size and amenities. Point Defiance Park boasts 760 acres of trail, manicured gardens, forests, playgrounds, and waterfront activities like boating and swimming. It's also home to the Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium, explore old growth forests, a saltwater beach, a Japanese garden, and a picnic area covered barbecues. And what you see here in this image is, I'm going to take down this thing here so that you guys can, see without the overlay. But what you see here is the Narrows Bridge, right? And so and some people will say, well, this guy must be very skewed towards Tacoma, or he must be from Tacoma. And that's just not true. There are some people who just hate it here. So it doesn't matter if the streets were paved in gold and the government gave everybody $1,000 every week. You're going to have people that hate it here and they'll talk about side issues such as trash or homeless or whatever. Or, somebody got their car broken into. Yeah, you're going to have that, right? There are some people that realize like that's a part of the reality. And I'm glad that the city, along with the governor, held a meeting so that people understood that homelessness here and the mayor have very little to do with each other. I've explained that. And there's a video that talks more about that in detail that I've done. Really, we have what's called a city manager, and they pretty much determine how much budget goes where, right? Not the mayor. Now in Seattle, it's a different story. The mayor is the boss. Here, the mayor is not so much the boss. The city manager is. So anytime people want to complain at the mayor and blame the mayor, it's kind of funny because she doesn't control. Same with the city council. They don't control the budget. They approve the budget. The budget's controlled by someone else, and a lot of the homeless encampments are on land not owned by the city. So you can't, as a city, go in and push people off and say, get out of here on someone else's land. A lot of it's owned by Sound Transit. Some of it's owned by the state. In the cases of Tacoma, under that bridge that people like to talk about, 705 Bridge, that's land owned by the Department of Transportation with Washington. Washington State Department of Transportation owns all of that. The other part, legally, no city or government entity can just kick homeless people off of a property that is owned by the public unless they give them some place to live. So they have to say, look, we have tiny homes available, or we have this many hotel rooms available, and so let's say we have 500 hotel rooms available and we have 300 homeless people. We'll offer to all of them. If 30 of them say, no, I'm not interested, then they still have to move. At that point, legally, the city or whatever entity can say, well, we gave you an option. We have places for you to stay. You said no, you can no longer be on this property. Then they can fence it off and make it so that the homeless folks can't move into there again because that land has been deemed no-go and you have places to go. That's when you can do something. But a lot of people don't do enough research. They just quickly think that every city is the same and they're managed the same, and that's absolutely not true, right? It's similar in business. Not all businesses follow the same protocols because they're all set up differently in terms of whether they are just a corporation, if they're a limited liability corporation or whatever, sole proprietorship. They all function differently and they all act differently in terms of what they're able to do and not able to do. But anyway, so it says Tacoma also offers 46 miles of waterfront space. Along with Point Defiance Park, you can spend afternoons on Ruston Way waterfront, just minutes from the museum district, and take in stunning views of Commencement Bay. Locals love to enjoy yoga, paddleboarding, biking, and jogging along the shore, rain or shine. Very true. If you go down on Ruston Way, it's a road called that, you'll see it. You'll see a ton of people walking, pushing strollers, jogging, yoga. You'll see a lot of that. Biking. You do see some paddleboarding, more so closer to downtown. But yeah, you'll see stuff like that often. Tacoma's walkable Museum Row. Now this will go into Tacoma too, or Seattle as well. Okay, so don't think it's just talking up Tacoma. Tacoma has plenty to offer young families, professional singles, and artists with a vibrant downtown area. One of the city's best cultural attractions is Museum Row, one of the best in the state. Explore several major museums within walking distance of each other, like the LeMay's Car Museum, North America's largest, the Children's Museum of Tacoma with award-winning pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-will admission approach that opens access to the museum to all families. So with our Children's Museum, unlike a lot of others, they don't ask for payment. You can donate, and oftentimes I will over-donate. So I'll see someone come in and I have my kids, they have their kids, and they say, how much, and so they tell them that, there's lockers right over there behind you, and it's pay as you go. And some people are like, okay, thank you, and they may walk in. I don't ask the people, why didn't you tip? I basically go and I give extra money to the museum and say, instead of giving you a 20, I might give you a 30 to kind of cover the fact that they're not able to pay. I don't know, maybe they are able to pay. It's not my thing. But I typically, it's if I see the person before me not really tipping, it could be that they can't afford to do so or that they're not wanting to do so. But by doing that, the Children's Museum has done a whole revamp. And so now there's all these new exhibits in there. So it helps when people do that. Washington State History Museum, it's big. It'll take you a while to go through it. Tacoma Art Museum, it's awesome because you get to see art that's done not only from adults and all this other stuff, but there's also a huge section where kids have created art that the museum has, and they've added on a whole new wing onto that place as well. Museum of Glass, Tacoma is known for its blown glass and beautiful artwork by master artist Dale Chihuly. Everywhere you look downtown at the Museum of Glass, walk across the Chihuly Bridge of glass and try making your own blown glass. If you notice that big cone that's kind of slanted, it's a gray cone. That is a giant vent that allows for all of those, I don't know what they're called. I don't know if they're called kilns or what they are, but it allows for them to actually make glass right in front of you. There's a little stadium seating in there where you can watch them do it. It's pretty cool. And then you have Foss Waterway Seaport, which is, again, awesome. Huge building. And so all of these you can walk from, right? It's not an issue. Unlike a lot of other cities where a museum's way across town and some are over here, you may have two in a certain area. Ours are all in one area. Few cities do that. Chicago's one that does that. San Diego kind of does that with Balboa Park. There's a few cities that make it easy for you, and Tacoma's one of them, right? Living in Tacoma cons, the Tacoma education system isn't as good as Seattle's. That's not a shock. That's changing. If you're moving with kids or considering starting a family, the quality of public and charter schools probably takes priority. One of the downsides of living in Tacoma is it doesn't have quite the same quality of education that Seattle offers. When you compare Seattle versus Tacoma, you'll find Tacoma has more students per teacher and a lower high school graduation rate, while 28% go on. While 28% of students go on to a four-year college degree in Tacoma, 62% achieve the same in Seattle. Now, that's a huge difference, right? But let's put that into context, right? Before, Seattle has always been a city that focused on, it attracted a lot of tech companies. It's had Microsoft in the background. It always focused on, the school system focused on that higher education. There's a lot of STEM and even STEAM. When you talk about the school that our kids went to or what Zoe went to up in Seattle, and they had little exhibits all out inside of the hallways and programs and projects and stuff like that, because Seattle is much more well-funded. It's a bigger city, more well-funded. It's had a longer history of success than, say, Tacoma. Tacoma, while the population of Tacoma has never decreased, ever, since its history, it's never decreased. Unlike Seattle, right? It never really had the wealth factor that Seattle did and the numbers that Seattle did. Seattle is one of those cities where even its adult population is the most educated big city in the country. So it is that's part of it too. Educated people typically want their kids to be educated, right? So You're seeing that. Now, the difference is Tacoma now is starting to catch up because we passed a lot of voter initiatives and funding for schools to be improved. So, for example, our kids are not going to their original school. They're going to a satellite school, an old school that really they just have for whenever they're doing work on other schools. The school that they normally go to is being torn down and rebuilt, right? So there's several schools here where they've torn them down and they're rebuilding them to make them much more modern, newer, all of that. And they're also building new schools to accommodate the growth. Again, when I talk about 6 or 7 people move here a day, you can kind of understand how many kids are coming with that number. The other part of that too is that we've raised the funding for teachers. So now teachers are making much more. Teachers used to complain about, heck, people in some of these smaller towns right next door to us are making more than we are. So that has been addressed, and so it's a slow effect, but this number will definitely get better. We also have specialty schools like SOTA, which is the School of Art, I believe. You then have, what's the other one? Hold on 1 second. I can't, it's on the tip of my tongue. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Let me tell them to be quiet. Okay, I'm back. So then we also have the Science and Math Institute, which is over there in Point Defiance, right inside of that area. We have Idea School. So we have all these different things, right? So the city is changing, and education is starting to get a whole lot more of a focus, right? Living in Seattle, the pros, Seattle's booming tech market, looking for a rewarding and high-paying job in the tech field. Seattle is definitely the place to be. One of the perks of living in Seattle is it is one of the country's top cities for tech, with the headquarters of Amazon, Microsoft, T-Mobile, and more. The Seattle job market is concentrated in finance, business, mathematics, computers, engineering, and architecture, with the fastest rate of growth in STEM jobs among all metro areas. So no other city in the country beats us in terms of how much growth we have in STEM. That correlates to our schools or the schools up in Seattle. So of course, again, this whole section here goes back to what I've said up here. I often hear people dog getting a college degree and going into debt and blah 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 and all this other nonsense and saying, well, why not go to the trade schools? That's true, but when you're in a city like Seattle, or and now ever increasingly becoming Tacoma, you're going to really find it tough to make that salary work. It's not that it's impossible, and I'm not diminishing trade school jobs. I think they're very important, especially in a place like this where we need a lot of construction workers, we need a lot of masons and all this other stuff, right? Bricklayers, I get it. But in a lot of places where those jobs pay really, really good and it makes a big difference in your life, here it doesn't do as much, right? You're making good money, don't get me wrong, but some of these stats are saying you're going to make $62 an hour as a plumber, and that's just a lie, right? Even in a place as expensive as here, that's a lie. So when I see some folks on Facebook talk about this and I look at where they're living and they're living in New Hampshire, I'm like, you're obviously telling a lie, right? So this right here is why the schools in Seattle, grade schools, have to be really, really good, because this right here, all of this correlates to this. Now, as Tacoma becomes more of a tech place, and the more that we invest in education, you're going to see that also increase as well. With that said, many people live in Tacoma and commute to Seattle. While that can be a challenging and long commute, for many it pays off thanks to Tacoma's more affordable housing and Seattle's high average salary. And that's the problem that Seattle is facing. It's not facing necessarily an exodus of people, but it's not growing as fast as it was. Why? Well, again, I go back up here to what it talks about in terms of Tacoma's quality of life. Quality of life in Tacoma is better than it is in Seattle. I'm sorry. Yes, Seattle has a lot of cool stuff. It's a big city, a lot of stuff to do. But when you think about the quality of life, having the quick access to things, parking, all of that, having a house that's got a yard, a front yard, backyard. Again, when you look at the two, Seattle is by far more urban in terms of every neighborhood you go to, right? You can be in an area with a lot of houses and look over and see, an 8-story building. You don't see that as much in Tacoma, but that's starting to happen more and more and more. So again, both cities are starting to reach kind of equilibrium in a lot of aspects, right? Seattle has a thriving arts and culture scene. One of the benefits of living in Seattle is there's always something to see and do. Seattle may be known for its legendary music scene and the birthplace of Soundgarden, Nirvana, and Jimi Hendrix. In fact, Jimi Hendrix, there's a statue of him. But it also features the Pacific Northwest Ballet, the Seattle Opera, and the Seattle Symphony, with historic music venues like the Moore Theater to explore. So when you look at this, let's compare, right? Let's compare this. You go back up here to where we were. We have a ballet, and they have a ballet. We have the Tacoma Philharmonic and the Tacoma Symphony Orchestra, and they have the Seattle Opera and the Seattle Symphony. They also have Moore Theater down there. And we have the Puget Sound Rebels and the Tacoma Dome. What it doesn't mention in here either is that we also have a performing arts center as well, right? It's not listed here, but that's also a big part of it. It also does not go into detail talking about our theaters, which is the Pantages and the Rialto, right? So again, for a city of 220,000 people and a city of 700 and something thousand people, Tacoma can really kind of punch its own weight given the two, right? There are tons of music venues in Seattle and many, many more opening. Want to take in some art and enjoy a nice afternoon on the town? Stop by the Seattle Art Museum, the Museum of Pop Culture, or MoPop as it's called, with many fun exhibits exploring tattoo culture, Minecraft, and Nirvana, right? So they have museums and stuff up there too, obviously. They're kind of scattered out. Living in Seattle cons. So see, they already went from the positives are kind of little because it's so darn expensive, right? So they go quickly to the cons. Seattle's expensive housing market. Thinking about buying a home? One of the biggest drawbacks of living in Seattle is its housing cost. The average home price is $758,000, nearly 3 times what you pay in Tacoma, just 30 minutes away. You'll pay about $510 square foot to buy a home in Seattle, and it's predicted that the home prices are expected to start rising again after hitting a record $820,000 in 2018. Remember 2018, I had a lot of people saying, is there a bubble, bubble, bubble? Because you jump all the way up to 820,000. It was just leapfrogging constantly, big numbers. And then it started dropping by $50,000 and dropping by more. And it was a major correction, right? So that humbled a lot of people. And at that time, Tacoma just shot up because, again, $820,000 for a home. And at that time, in 2018, you can get a house here for $250,000. So it was no question. People said, heck, why not Tacoma? We blew up in population. So the population census numbers that came out, I don't think are nearly accurate when it comes to Tacoma. And then when they've done another kind of quick analysis, and it's showing like a much bigger population. So it wouldn't surprise me if we're the second largest city. I think that we've passed Spokane, but officially on record, they're a couple of thousand ahead of us, or a few thousand ahead of us. Seattle recently experienced the fastest growing home prices in the country thanks to a lack of available housing and strong job growth. Same thing's happening down here now, and not so much necessarily up in Seattle. They have a massive, strong job growth, but the available housing started to improve quite a bit up there. Down here, not so much. Of course, the strength of the Seattle real estate market and high-paying jobs are pushing more people to move to Tacoma, which is also pushing up prices there. Still, your money will go a lot more in Tacoma when you compare Tacoma versus Seattle. Keep in mind you get new construction with a yard, better features, and more square footage in Tacoma. Very true. You can buy a house here that you don't like, tear it down, rebuild it, and you're still going to save more money than you would just buying a used house in Seattle. right? Seattle's homeless crisis. Living in Seattle, you'll see that there's really two Seattles, the bright new skyscrapers and another city of cardboards and tents. Seattle is facing a growing population of homeless people. Of the 3,700 homeless people in King County, 2,800 are in Seattle, a population of 20%, up 20% between 2019 and 2020. I don't know if this is actually true in terms of the number. I've heard as many as 50,000 people are homeless in Seattle slash King County. I don't know. I don't know, but I do think it's greater than 3,700 people, right, by far. There's even a lot of homeless people in Bellevue, right? There is. Along with this humanitarian issue has come an explosion of crime and addiction, which can be a safety issue for people living in the area. A major con of living in Seattle, needles are routinely found amongst almost everywhere in the city, including parks, storm drains, and sidewalks. Within 15 months ending in fall of 2017, over 32,000 hypodermic syringes were collected throughout the city. I got people who talk about Tacoma, and they want to downplay the city, but I simply tell people, ignore the comments under videos of mine. Come to the city yourself. That goes for Seattle, Bellevue, Everett, Olympia, or Tacoma. Because some people are going to be jaded by what they see. They may have had bad luck or issues that have happened and they just hate everything. So I've never seen a hypodermic needle on the ground in Tacoma. Not saying that doesn't exist. I'm sure there's a plenty. I haven't seen that. When I went to a park in Seattle, right close to our home, I saw a hypodermic needle on the ground, right? And so I saw more of that than I did here. Again, not to say that you won't see it. You'll definitely see it. You'll definitely see it. And it doesn't mention Tacoma's homelessness crisis because both cities, guess what, have had homelessness for 50, actually longer than that. Both cities where the port is were shanty towns. When people talk about the homelessness as holding the cities back, developers laugh at that and say, you obviously don't understand the history of both cities. In Seattle's port was a shanty village. Guess what? In Tacoma's Tide Flats was a shanty village. Up until very recently, they started, and I'm talking before I was alive, but there were still people in shanty villages that refused. One day I'll do a video about it, but we're talking over 100 years ago. There's always been homelessness in big cities. Tacoma was the biggest city in the state at one point. It was the major city. And so obviously you're going to have people coming here because they're wanting to strike it rich and they're poor. So they build whatever they can and hope for mining gold up in Alaska, right? It is what it is, right? Modern day folks are kind of thrown off because they're thinking it's something just only pertaining to this area, and that's just not true. Has it grown? Absolutely, it's grown quite a bit. Quite a bit. Over the last couple of years, yes, I would agree with that. Cost of living in Tacoma versus Seattle. Cost of living is a major concern whenever you're thinking about relocating to a new area. How much will your money buy you in Tacoma versus Seattle? Will you be able to afford to buy a home or live close to the city? What do your commuting costs look like? This is kind of addressing your question, right? Cost of living in Tacoma is substantially lower than Seattle for living costs. You need about $66,020 in Seattle to get the same standard of living that you can enjoy for $4,500 in Tacoma. Seattle is about 26% higher than the Washington State average cost of living. Tacoma is just under. According to Numbeo, here's how the cost of living breaks down. Consumer prices are 21% lower in Tacoma versus Seattle. Rent is 58% higher in Seattle versus Tacoma. Restaurant prices are 18% lower in Tacoma versus Seattle. And this is why you're seeing a lot of restaurants leave Seattle and come down here or open up down here. Restaurateurs are opening up in Seattle. And this shows you, this was back in 2020, it's 18% cheaper. Your prices for food is 18% lower than it is up in Seattle. Big difference. And look at the and this is talking about residential rents, but commercial rents, imagine what they would be up in Seattle versus Tacoma. Groceries are 35% higher in Seattle than Tacoma. Curious about how much you'll pay for public transportation to get to work? A monthly pass in Tacoma is $72. That's very true, even though it's the same card. Do I have an Orchard card on me? Hold on. If you were up in Seattle, I think Noel took mine and never gave it back. We don't use public transit as much because our thing is free, right? So to get on our light rail, here it's free for now. That's going to change. That's another difference, right? I have my Orchid card. Noel's got it. We all use the same card. We're up in Seattle or down here or wherever. And yet it's $72. A monthly pass is $72. In Seattle, it's $100. Same card. I can buy this card down here, use it all up in Seattle, no problem. Right? Of course, the lower cost of living in Tacoma is offset by a lower median salary. On average, Seattle residents earn $5,323 a month compared to $3,353 for Tacoma residents. So that's why you have that shift. I'll work up in Seattle, bring all that money down here. And that's why Tacoma is getting things that people are like scratching their head like, how can, if people are making much less, how are we able to support some of these higher end things that are coming to the city? Well, that's the reason why. They bring the money from Seattle down here. I've even seen people drive around in Bentleys, Lamborghinis, and everything else down here. Hold on one second. Let me check and see if that's the delivery. Okay, yeah, I got a bunch of stuff. That was not everything coming in, but that's quite a bit. One of the most important ways to compare and contrast the cost of living in Seattle is looking at the housing costs, which are likely the biggest expenses you're going to face. I don't think they include parking in here. I wish they did because that would have been a major thing too. Average rent in Tacoma is $1,410 according to Rent Jungle. Now this is old. This was in 2020. It was $1,400. Compare the average rent in Seattle is $1,955. Don't forget to consider home prices too if you plan on buying a home. The median price value in Tacoma is $227,000. Again, this is very old. Almost precisely the national average. Seattle, meanwhile, is almost 3 times higher at $758,000. This is a little, again, off. If you're thinking about buying or selling the Tacoma area, we consider recommending blah, 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 blah. So it shows you the skyline of Seattle, beautiful city. Shows you Tacoma, beautiful city as well. So it's not like you don't have that city feel. You still do. It's just different. Seattle, you know you're in a big city of Seattle. It just, you feel it. Here, you can bring someone in from out of town, drop them into Tacoma, and they think they're in a big, big, big city because it feels that way too. Additional things to consider between Tacoma versus Seattle population. Do you prefer the excitement of a big city or would you prefer a mid-sized city with everything closer? The population of Tacoma is 207,000. Which that's off. It's a little bit more than that. Compared to Seattle's population of 745,000. Again, it's a little bit bigger than that. Tacoma is still part of Seattle's metro area, which alongside with Bellevue has a combined population of 3.8 million. I just told you that recent census shows that we now have a population in the region of 4.2 million. Despite having a smaller population, this is the part where people don't like Tacoma. People will dance around and say, that's not true. But I look at people's, just like the FBI and everybody else looks at people's Facebook posts and their comments and stuff like this and past comments and the word choices that people use. And you can kind of say, yeah, you probably have some bias issues, right? Everybody has their biases, but when you let them dictate how you move about, that's when it's an issue. Despite having a smaller population, one of the pluses of living in Tacoma is it offers greater diversity with a racial and ethnic composition that is 60% white, 12% Hispanic, 10% Black, 9% Asian, and 1% Pacific Islander, and 1% Indigenous. Crime rate in Tacoma versus Seattle. While Tacoma and Seattle This is going to be a shock for people because it's still the same thing, but people think Tacoma's worse. It's just funny. It's just, it doesn't, this is why people say Tacoma is by far more violent than Seattle, and that's just not true, folks. I'm sorry. I wish I could find some stats to prove that Tacoma is the butthole, but it's not. I can't find it. While Tacoma and Seattle aren't ranked as the safest big cities in the U.S., one of the benefits of living in Tacoma is it's rated as a safer city than Seattle, according to a study comparing not only violent and property crime rates, but also the risk of natural disasters, financial risk, foregoing health insurance, and cybercrime. Seattle was ranked the second best city for financial safety, though. So when you look at all of this, it should let you know, to the people who claim that Seattle is or Tacoma is so rough or so violent or so, it's crip walking, Seattle is by far worse. That hasn't changed in a long time, right? Even today, that's still the case, right? Tacoma versus Seattle climate. The entire Pacific Northwest is famous for its rainfall and overcast days. I'm going over each one of these because I have people who will complain that he doesn't cover this, he doesn't talk about that, he's hiding this. I ain't got nothing to hide. That's silly. But both Seattle and Tacoma are no different. The cities are about 35 miles apart. Similar weather. Both receive about 4 to 5 inches of snow each year. It's not always accurate, but yeah. Below the national average of 28 inches, but up to 41 inches of rainfall. Seattle gets a few more sunny days a year, 152 compared to 141 in Tacoma. The commute times are massive, right? It says here, and this is again why I tell folks, if you want to live in Tacoma, live in Tacoma. Don't live in some of these other places and drive in. Life will suck. Long and stressful commutes are one of the many reasons people choose to move, so it makes sense to consider what type of commute you'll look forward to when locating to Seattle or Tacoma. Unfortunately, both cities are among the top 10 in the nation for stressful commutes. One of the perks of living in Tacoma compared to Seattle is, however, a somewhat better commute. A drawback of living in Seattle is it recently ranked the second in the country for the longest commutes. This is not a shock. So when people say, we have bad traffic over here in Memphis, it's like, yeah, but that's different. You have a lot of arteries where we don't. A study found that Seattle residents spend a whopping 138 hours per year in traffic, which costs the average driver almost $2,000 a year. On average, it takes commuters 28 minutes to get to work in Seattle thanks to congestion on I-5 and downtown ramps. The only reason Seattle didn't beat Los Angeles for worst commutes in the country the only reason Seattle didn't beat Los Angeles for worst commutes in the country, question mark. I don't know what that means. Somewhat lower gas prices is, I guess, why they're saying that. Is if you compare our commutes and our gas prices, which are a little bit lower here than it is in LA, that's why LA didn't beat us, or we didn't beat LA. I don't know. Tacoma, by comparison, ranked 10th, right? So Seattle is number 2 in terms of congestion in the country. We're number 10. So it says both Seattle and Tacoma have much to offer. These cities on the Puget Sound have exciting cultural destinations and aren't too far apart. Tacoma offers more affordable living, great live music, and the outdoors, while Seattle boasts a strong tech economy and cultural scene. As you compare Seattle versus Tacoma, which city is calling you? Think about locating there, blah, 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 right? So, and I don't know where this company is. People may say, well, where he lives, because he probably lives in Tacoma, and he has a reason. He's got a business, so he's probably wanting people to do this and do that, right? I don't know if that's the case or not. But here's the raw numbers that are there, right? When it comes to, I'll look this up to see exactly where this is, right? When it comes to the 2, now I'm not talking about these little small, he's in Tumwater, Washington. So, he doesn't live in either one. He doesn't have really an angle here necessarily. I mean, he can move you no matter where you go, I guess. But yeah, it's not like he benefits by bigging up Tacoma and speaking down to Seattle. It's just the raw facts. I mean, they are what they are. Individual experiences obviously are going to vary and be different. Some people may have had a great time up in Seattle and came to Tacoma and it sucked. Or vice versa. It's not for everybody. Everybody's experiences are going to be different. But what this whole hour-long video is talking about is that, yes, a lot of your perceptions of what you think are not necessarily true when it comes to either city. And the best thing to do, as I've mentioned, is to go to those cities and not go to just the touristy areas. If you go to Seattle, and often people do this, they go to Seattle and they see this, and that's all that they see is this. They're thinking, it's kind of like when you go to Vegas and you see the strip and you're like, yeah, that's Vegas, but it's not. Once you leave the strip like what we did and you went out to where the normal folks live and where it's not, you don't see a lot of tourists, it's just a regular down city. You don't know that you're in Vegas really. It's just like, I thought it was in Albuquerque, just a more spruced up, spicier Albuquerque. And that's the same way it is in Seattle. So don't go downtown with all of the fun stuff. Go out into the community. Same thing with Tacoma. You'll find the quality of life in Tacoma. You don't have a city here that can beat that in terms of the trifecta. Now, you're going to have some smaller suburbs, maybe, but if you're talking about wanting a city vibe, then no. Now, there are some people, especially boomers, who may not want to be in the city. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I've had people say, not everybody wants to live in Tacoma. Right. Some people probably are better suited in the suburbs. It's completely okay. Some people are better in the country, very rural parts of this area. That's okay too. I'm talking about the people who are more my age, younger, who are interested in living more in a city. I'm going to say probably your better bet will be Tacoma compared to Seattle. And it just kind of spelled that out. Now, I don't have any sort of benefit from people located here, right? I'm only here to kind of present to you the information and to say, this is kind of the reason why we chose Tacoma too, was because the quality of life is by far better. It just is. There's no way that you can say that it isn't. It just is. But anyhow, and you have a lot of stuff that you can do in Tacoma. It's not like you're missing out, like Seattle's got a zoo, but Tacoma doesn't. We have a zoo too. Well, Seattle has an aquarium. Well, we do too, and it's included in the zoo pass. Unlike Seattle, where you have to pay separate for both, ours is all included. You pay for the zoo, you get to go into both aquariums. We have 2 aquariums. Seattle has 1, and you have to pay separately for that one. You can't say, well, we have an art museum. Well, we do too. Well, we have performing arts. Well, we do too. Like, we have everything that you do have. We have big, giant parks. Well, so do we. We have, one, we have Point Defiance Park, as mentioned. Dune Peninsula is another one. Wright Park was massive. That's one. What's the other one? It's something Creek. People here know what I'm talking about. It starts with an S. But we have that. We have beaches here. We have everything that you have. We just don't have the big shiny buildings like what you have. We don't have that. So anyhow, tell me what your thoughts are. Be sure to join the Discord down in the description box below. I hope I answered your questions, sir. And I hope that you continue to watch. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.